Hi, Terry. Welcome to the show.
Lauren, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's have you briefly introduce yourself and what exactly is the Better Sleep Council?
The Better Sleep Council is a group that puts out a lot of great information on sleep, sleep hygiene, how to get a better night's sleep, and a whole lot of great information on the sleep surface and how to choose the right mattress. Just all kinds of great information so people can really get that good night of sleep that everyone needs. So, and they've been nice enough to let me work with them for quite a long time now. And I am a registered nurse, certified in clinical sleep health, and I just nag. A lot of people will say I'm a nag, and really help people understand sleep a little bit better and why it's important to get a good night's sleep every single night.
Love it. It is important. I feel like
Yeah,
I have toddlers, so I know what it's like to be sleep deprived, and I can tell you, you are living on the edge. It is
I
not
hear you.
good.
Right,
Uh,
right.
okay, so we know that sleep is obviously important, but why is it crucial for career success? And what are some of the biggest ways sleep deprivation impacts productivity in the workplace? I know I've personally experienced this, but I love to know the
Oh, yeah.
science behind it too.
Well, here's where the problem is, Lauren, because for so many years, and I mean, I don't think it's over now. I think it's continuing. We have glamorized and idealized people that say, "Oh, I don't need to get plenty of sleep. I've got too much to do. I want to be productive, so I don't get much sleep. Instead, I'm awake and getting things done." And that is just such the wrong formula, and it's not the way to get ahead. It's not the way to be successful and to achieve anything of lasting value. We can't willpower our way through getting less sleep than we need. And so for you and I and every adult out there, we need 7 to 9 hours every single night. And statistically speaking, there are less than 1% of our population that are true short sleepers. And you may know one, they're very rare, but literally less than 1%, but they get by on 5 hours of sleep. They tend to be incredibly successful because they are not having the consequences and the health problems from a lack of sleep because they've got that genetic variant. But for the most of us, and for the most part, 7 to 9 hours, and then we're really at our best, and we're performing well, we're thinking clearly, and we're getting so much done. So I always tell people off right out of the gate, don't skimp on sleep when you're trying to get more done, or if you think that's the route to success, because it certainly isn't.
So if you're not getting 7 to 9, can you pretty much assume that you're, sleep deprived, or is there like a certain way to officially know, like, yes, I am officially sleep deprived?
Yeah, I mean, great question, because some people lose their point of reference. They forget what it's like to be really rocking it during the day and just really at their peak performance. They just forget what it's like. Or they'll say, well, it's old age, or here's an excuse, there's an excuse, without really understanding it truly is sleep deprivation, because it's much more than being sleepy, which is something else to bring up. We get it. We just rubbing your eyes and yawning and the head nodding, things like that. But a lot of other things happen and manifest themselves, like irritability, not getting along with coworkers. We've tied sleep deprivation to job dissatisfaction. People aren't as happy with their jobs. They have relationship problems. Things, they have trouble communicating. They're just not themselves, and they're not doing things well. We don't get more done when we have more waking hours. When we're well rested, we get more done in less time because it's more efficient. We're more organized. Things are more accurate. So we're so much better. So I think we have to say, what, you know, a little self assessment and self awareness. Am I sleep deprived, and why am I being so short tempered with my child, or why am I screaming at the person in front of me who's not changing lanes? There's so many just nuances that really are red flags, like, wait a minute, this isn't me. I shouldn't be feeling this way. And do I need coffee all day long to get through the day? That's not normal. That's not normal. Now, if you're getting 7 to 9 hours, or you're in bed for that long and you still feel really sleepy during the day and can't stay awake or depend on caffeine, something's not right. And that's why I say always treat sleep like a vital sign. That sleep should be addressed at every healthcare encounter with your provider. Always address your sleep. Even if they don't bring it up, you bring it up. But, yeah, if you're tired during the day, you might have a sleep disorder that hasn't been identified and treated. So that's something to think about, or you're not in a good sleep environment, or you're not practicing good sleep hygiene.
Right.
Sometimes I think everyone is probably sick of hearing the good sleep habits. It's just repeated over and over. But I think people think, well, if I can't do that, or if I look at my phone for a little bit in bed, then they just throw it all out the window. So I want to approach it from a realistic standpoint. But I think it's important to really understand how important it is and to do as best you can with the sleep hygiene, optimize your sleep environment, pay attention. How, has it been 36 years since you replaced your mattress? I, I promise you, I talked to someone on a plane once for a whole flight from the West Coast to the East Coast about, she said it was 36 years. And she said, I can't figure it out. I've had all these sleep tests done. I've tried everything. And sometimes it's the easy thing, right?
Right.
It's your comfort. So there's a lot of variables, but I think it's important to make it a priority, a daily priority, and not just maybe wait for the weekend to catch up on sleep that you've skimped on during the week. That's important.
Well, isn't that a myth too? You can't catch up on sleep, right? Or can you?
Well, you can catch up. Here's what happens though. There is cellular damage being done with all this sleep deprivation. We're just not sure we can undo that really serious damage that's being done inside of our bodies and brains. So while we can catch up, and it's a good idea to catch up, we don't want to accrue a lot of sleep debt. I think the caveat is don't make that a thing. Don't rely on that, because we're finding out every day. The research is fascinating, but sleep deprivation is associated with three types of cancers. It's associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. So many chronic diseases are linked to sleep deprivation. So it's pretty important. That's my
Yeah.
understatement of the year. Pretty important.
Okay, so people listening to this might be like me, where it's like, I want 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I
Uh-huh.
want to be a really good sleeper. I have this thing that happens at like 3 in the morning where my brain will turn on and I'll start thinking about things. And so sometimes it's hard to quiet my mind. So
Sure.
can we just talk about let's stick to you're not even getting the 7 to 9 hours. Let's start with this group of people versus people who are getting that amount of sleep, but they're still really tired. So if you're not getting 7 to 9 hours, how do you help yourself start with that? And then I also have a question of, is the 7 to 9 hours, like for example, my kids get up really early and I know that so I'll try to go to bed by 9 so that when they wake up at 5:30 or whatever, I'm 9 to 5, I'm getting that 8 hours of sleep. But
Sure.
I'll close my eye or like turn off the lights at 9, but I might not fall asleep for a while. So is the amount of time from when you turn off the lights or from when you
Sure.
actually sleep? So like, should I really be trying to go to bed at like 7:30 or what?
Well, first of all, never try to sleep. We want to say just relax, sleep will follow. There are a couple things you can do. We don't want to lie in bed. It usually takes about 15 minutes to fall asleep. If you don't fall asleep in that amount of time, maybe you're going to bed too early. It just depends on your personal schedule. We want to have a bedtime alarm so we don't go off on different, whether we're working on a project, reading, doing something on the web. We want to make sure we have a bedtime alarm to say, whoa, it is time to stop. We want a bedtime routine, Lauren, because that is so essential to help us transition from wakefulness to sleep. It's a hard, tall order to just cut it off. So we want that bedtime routine. We want to schedule because we want consistent bedtimes and wake times that allow for sufficient sleep. So you might have to play with that for a little while and see what's right for you. I know when my little one was little, he's not little anymore, but I mean, it was like twice a week I went to bed super early with him and I did fall asleep.
Mhm.
But we want to keep that schedule consistent that permits that time. I always recommend doing a brain dump at the end of your workday. Put everything on paper, literally manually put it on paper. It helps things look a little more manageable. It might help that bedtime ruminating when your head hits the pillow. And again, if you don't fall asleep 15, 20 minutes, get out of bed. We don't want you to associate your bed with sleeplessness. So do something in low light, and maybe you're not sort of getting ready for bed in the right way. We want dim lighting in the evening. We don't want to walk into the bathroom 5 minutes before our bedtime and turn on the bright lights and start brushing our teeth and washing our face. And, there that melatonin production is just going to be ruined once we start doing that. So pay attention to lighting, pay attention to activities, stay away. We talk about the blue light from our electronics, but it's also the content of when we're on those electronics tend to be quite stimulating, especially these days. Stay away from it. Read a non-engaging nonfiction book. Go through a magazine. Find something pleasant to do at bedtime so you're looking forward to it. But definitely have that wind down period for yourself, just like we do with our children.
I was gonna say this sounds just like a sleep schedule I do with the toddlers.
Yes,
Like
and it works. Yeah, usually it
does,
works.
and it kind of signals to your body like we're preparing for bed, right? So that
Yeah,
you can fall asleep faster. So
yeah.
you mentioned if you don't fall asleep within the first 15 minutes, let's say you are being really diligent about your bedtime routine.
Mhm.
It's what do you do then? If you're like, oh, I've done my whole routine, I stayed off my phone, I got away
Mhm.
from all the stimulating things, I've been in bed for 30 minutes, I'm not asleep. Does that mean you're going to bed too early and you need to get up? But I mean, also the flip side is sometimes you know that you have to get up for a flight at 5 a.m. or something like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here's where, the relaxation, anything you can do to relax, what helps you is essential. But I also think it's something that you have to pay attention. I love tracking sleep. You don't have to get an expensive wearable to do that. I mean, there are sleep diaries available on the net that you can do just paper and but just track it, see what's going on. That might help you sort of see any trends. Are you eating dinner too late in the night? I know a lot of us will have an adult beverage maybe close to bedtime. It helps a lot of people unwind. I get that. But if it's too close to bedtime, it may help you fall asleep, but later in the night, it's going to really wreak havoc on your sleep. So the next night, you're going to get a vicious cycle of depending on that. So, move that back. Heavy meals, move those back. You know, look at the timing of everything and definitely look at your mindset. With the little ones, we always say at bedtime, and I know that's a big challenge, and we can do a whole other show on getting the little ones
Yeah.
into bed, and we can do that. But we always say, name three things that happened to you today, three good things. It's always positive and good. And that really puts bedtime in a positive light and going to sleep. But I think adults need to do that as well. I think some bedtime journaling, just whatever it takes. I talked to a woman the other day. She said podcasts have saved her sleep. She puts on her earphones so it doesn't disturb her husband, but she likes to have to her. I mean, it's the equivalent of a bedtime story for a kid. It's distracting. She doesn't like that sort of lie in the dark and breathe. It's just she feels like she's imploding. But it was so cool how she said that just was a game changer. So find what it is. You might have to experiment, but track for a couple of weeks and watch. And again, if you are getting 7 to 9 hours, you still feel crappy in the day and you don't wake up refreshed because you should talk to your healthcare provider. There are things for insomnia that don't involve medications. I want to be real clear on that. In fact, the first line of treatment for insomnia is something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And if you can't get it in person from a provider, sometimes it's available through telehealth. And I think it's starting to be available through apps.
Yeah. I'm curious too. So, I think a lot of people will agree, like, yes, I want to sleep. Okay, if I'm gonna, it's almost like, shifting your mindset to being like, I'm gonna prioritize this, I'm gonna make this a major effort. I'm
Mhm.
curious for like before and after stories.
Mm.
What are some of the before and afters, especially for people in
Oh,
their careers? Because I would imagine for work, it's like decision making gets easier, focus gets easier. To your point,
oh
it's
yeah.
like you're able to do more things in less time. So yeah, I'd love to hear like a before and after of somebody.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the most poignant story was a working mom. One just a later, I thought she was a very cool person, but I mean, when I first met her, very irritable, very angry, and just such a bad vibe and you kind of like, what's going on here? Anyway, she came to our clinic, severe sleep apnea. 30-day follow-up, she was fitted with CPAP and finally breathing. Watching someone struggle at night with sleep apnea is shocking. It changed my career after I first saw it. And I said, I'm going into sleep medicine. We've got to really teach people about this. But she came back. Her husband looked at me and said, thank you for giving us our mother back and my wife back. I mean, complete transition. I mean, your personality is so affected in who you are and how you do. And I think I find people that are struggling with sleep, they procrastinate, they get depressed, they get anxious. They're not, they're just not performing how they should. And it's just so sad to see people look at getting plenty of sleep or and prioritizing that as sort of a blockade to their success or a a wall that needs to, rather than a means. I mean, sleep is the means to performing at your best and to being successful and to really having a quality of life that is so important. People, when they start sleeping, if they haven't been or start prioritizing, they're happier, they're more
Yeah.
social. And I always get this where people, another story, a woman was sitting in the front row. They're always in the front row of my things. I'm like, oh God, shush. So that she says at the end, she raised her hand and said, I want my son to go to an Ivy League school. Okay. So she said, I want him, he right now, 6 hours of homework every night, but I'm good with that because I want him in an Ivy League school. Okay, I understand that. And I understand her goals and his goals. And what I said was the problem is he's only getting, I think we added up 6.5 hours per night. Teenagers need 9.25. And she was shocked at that number. That is the precise number. They really have to, if they're not in the 8 to 9 range, things aren't good for them in so many ways, mentally and physically. So I said, why don't you cut back on the homework, increase his sleep time? He's going to get more done, do it better if he has the sleep. I think that's sort of what I alluded to before. That's sort of the hard concept to understand until you actually live it. So I think ideally it should be 30 days for people that haven't had a good night's sleep in a long time, but start with 2 weeks. Of 2 weeks, just stopping everything the way it's been and saying, I'm going to schedule this for 2 weeks. What can I delegate? What can I do? What can I change? What can I carpool? What can I do with the kids? What can I do in my life to schedule that 7 to 9 hours? And it's been fairly magical to see. And I think physically, of course, people are going to feel better. They won't get colds and flus and other more serious things, but just the emotional response to that
Yeah.
is and people have said it's just so gratifying. And they just all of a sudden, they're optimistic. They're like looking at things through a positive lens. They're not getting frustrated. They're not having the bedtime battles with their kids. They're not short tempered. They're kinder and more loving to their partners. Um, just the whole lot of things come into play. And I think it can be life changing.
What do you think about something I see that's gotten very popular is mouth tape? Because you talked about sleep apnea, and I've been seeing this trend where people will put mouth tape because breathing through your mouth is not very good for you. So no, you're shaking your head no.
No, I mean, we have to be so careful. I just worry about things. I hear women who say, I will only sleep on my back so I don't get wrinkles. And, it kind of, then we have to think about, well, sleep apnea can be a positional situation at times. And after menopause, the rates of sleep apnea in women sort of rival that with men. And that's another concern to look out for, if you're tired waking up and really not getting through the day and gaining weight all of a sudden and just having a lot of symptoms. I think there are a lot of menopause symptoms that have been sort of mixed in with sleep deprivation symptoms. And I think that's true with teenagers as well. I think that teenage angst for the most part, is them just not getting enough sleep, and we're not protecting their sleep like we should. But I think we have to be very unapologetic for the need of for our need for sleep. Never feel like you're not a good mother, not a good worker, not a good colleague because you're sacrificing sleep. Sacrificing sleep is incredibly irresponsible. And I read an interesting survey done the other very recently, and I will have to find the citation for it. But what was interesting, they surveyed a lot of men and women, and men felt that they were actually demonstrating strength by saying they don't need or get much sleep. Well, when they say they don't need sleep, they're lying. Unless they're one of those, it's not true. And that's just crazy. And they don't get it. Well, that's stupid. But women are doing it. And what they said was like, bragging's not the right word, but why are you so vocal about, I don't get sleep? Because they perceive themselves to be self-sacrificing and sort of seeing that as a virtuous thing and a thing to be admired when it's so far from the truth. Because when you're driving drowsy, I hate that word. It's so benign. It's as dangerous as putting your kids in the car if you're drunk. Drowsy driving is as dangerous as drunk driving. Then we look at on the job. Christopher Barnes does incredible research about ethics. People's ethics go down the tubes when they're tired. So people, I mean, all of a sudden these bad things happen. People make bad decisions. We have poor judgment when we're sleep deprived. We take risks. We do all kinds of sometimes really terrible things when we're sleep deprived, and it just affects us in every way. So we have to look at this sleep need as a biological need. You and I would not brag about not needing water during the day. I mean, we would
Right.
no, or anything like that. If we did it with food, it would be, oh my God, they've got an eating disorder. But we're not looking at sleep as a biological requirement. And we're not looking at people that take it seriously and are responsible about it as that is virtuous, that is admirable, and that is being self-sacrificing in the right way.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about just selfishly, I'm like, okay, I'm going to set up a bedtime routine. I'm probably going to have to start going to bed a little earlier. I think especially for working parents, there's this feeling of like you're with your kids and then you do work and then you put your kids to bed and it's like the first free moment sometimes you have all day and you're getting pretty close to your own bedtime. So, but I definitely want to try this because I also feel like ideally it would help me be more efficient. So like to your trade-off that you're talking about, like I have this sense of like, oh, but I can't get things done until later in the day, but maybe if I slept better, I would be able to get more done. So anyway, I see the trade-off there.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, I mean, that's people bring that up to me all the time about that's my me time. That I want to stay up later because I have that time to myself. Get your sleep. Sleep is the best me time available. It is.
Well, that's good because I'm going to start prioritizing that. I'm going to create my sleep routine. I also know that I don't have a wearable, but some people do have wearables will tell them you got this much of REM sleep. So
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the types of sleep and then how much REM sleep should you be getting? Should you be focusing on that? Or is it like, look, go to bed and have enough time to get that 7 to 9 hours and the rest will take care of itself?
Exactly what you just said. Yeah, I think we get some good information. I think it's helpful in a lot of ways. I still talk to people no matter how many podcasts I go on and talk about don't hit the snooze alarm in the morning. Everyone goes, I always hit my snooze alarm in the morning. Don't do that because you're really wrecking that REM sleep. Glad you brought it up. REM, there's so much going on when we sleep. There's so much happening, and we have to preserve that and protect it. And when you start cutting corners and which is putting when you hit the snooze alarm you're cutting corners, and that last bit of REM sleep is important for so many housekeeping activities, and again back to brain health. We want to preserve it. So um, I would aim to get to 7 9 hours, and you should be cycling through unless there's something going on. Again, you don't want to eat dinner too late, you don't want to have alcohol in your system, and you also want to make sure you don't have a sleep disorder. And if you're waking up in the middle of the night all the time, that's something to get some help with. Now, there are things you can do to, a lot of people do wake up, and if their mattress is comfortable, if their sleep environment is comfortable and incredibly dark and quiet, they usually go right back to sleep. If you're getting up repeatedly to use the restroom, it could be a sign of a sleep disorder. If you're getting up for any reason, don't look at a clock, don't look at the time, don't pick up your phone. Keep it dark. You're going to just start going in every direction. All of a sudden, it's going to be, I'm going to do the arithmetic here. I've got 3 more hours of sleep. Oh my God, I've got a big thing tomorrow.
Right.
Just don't go there. But if you do go there, which you will. So, I mean, I can say no, stop, don't, but you're going to do it. I do it. Everyone does it. Let's be real. You have to understand, and I had a sleep doctor explain this to me, and I thought it was fascinating. He said the brain chemistry in the middle of the night is kind of different. And when you wake up in the middle of the night, everything seems 2,000 times worse than it is. And he said, it's those chemicals. Blame it on the chemicals. But if you're aware of that and sort of, okay, it's the middle of the night. I'm a little crazy right now, but I'm going to feel 100% better when I wake up. So I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to sit here and get everything's a catastrophe and my world's coming to an end because I did my brain dump, yesterday at the end of the workday. It was all manageable. Life's going to be fine. Um, and do what it takes to go back to sleep. Sometimes get out of bed and just flip through a magazine if it's just something in low light. One of my friends always has a jigsaw puzzle, low light, just kind of brain numbing. But I stay in bed and I do that cognitive shuffling trick where you can pick out different letters of a word and I'm going to list all the fruits that start with that letter. Or somebody told me once they think of their favorite movie and run it backwards in their mind. Little things like that. Or turn off that boring podcast or audiobook that you've listened to a million times so you know how it's going to end, but someone's voice puts you to sleep in 2 seconds. There's things you can do. Just don't make it involve light. Don't make it stimulating. And don't, people say once they pick up their phone and, oh, I got a text, oh, I got an email, it's an hour of lost sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So make that, I will be awful about that one thing. I have
Well,
to be.
I mean, I am guilty of, I would go through stages of sleeping with my phone. Now that I have kids, it's like their monitors are on that, so I
Sure.
end up having it on there. But I agree, I can put it further away, so I like
Yeah.
really need to work hard if I need to check it. So I relate to all of this. I want to wrap up by just talking about if someone listening today who is like, all right, you've convinced me, I want to start improving my sleep right away. What are three simple changes that they can make tonight to set themselves up for better rest?
Okay. So for tonight, I would say have a bedtime routine. I would talk to everyone in the family about the importance of sleep. Never do that late at night when everyone's could be too tired, frustrated, short tempered. Talk about the importance of sleep with every family member during the day because we want that to be a family value. Do something relaxing at bedtime, um, and definitely assess your sleep environment. And it might not be achievable tonight, but I would look around the room and say, when's the last time I bought a mattress or shop for a mattress? Or is my mattress comfortable? How dark is it? Turn off every light. And is it super dark? Lauren, you have no idea how much of a difference that makes to have a super dark sleep environment. Whether you get blackout curtains if you need them, or you get a comfortable sleep mask, it is so important. And then start paying attention to the noise. I would just start literally looking at your schedule today, thinking about your bedtime. Do you need to change it? And if you have kids, no matter what age, I think it's really cool to go online and look at bedtime calculators. Age, what time do you need to get up? Okay, it'll show you what time to go to bed. Then you're not the bad guy for saying it's bedtime. Everyone go to bed. So I think all of us have to, at work, in our family, in the classroom, all of us have to look at sleep and start looking at it through a different lens and really looking at it in terms of all of the benefits and great things it brings to us rather than, oh God, who has time for that? I'll get around it, work around it. It doesn't happen. We want to be safe, healthy, and happy. And I think really the best place to start with that is to get a sufficient amount of sleep. So get everyone on board, have everyone have good sleep manners. If in terms of don't wake anyone up who's sleeping, and just being kind and considerate and really having a better attitude about it.
Okay, well, I would like you to tell that to my 2.5-year-old who wakes
I will.
everybody up at 5 a.m. and decides it's not time to go back to bed. But
Mhm.
that's to your point, that's a whole other conversation. Terry, this has been very enlightening and really helped motivate me to prioritize it more than I have.
Yay.
So thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Lauren. Hit the definitely stop by the Better Sleep Council website because there's lots of great information that I didn't have time to touch on, but you'll find it there at bettersleep.org. And I appreciate your time today. Fun meeting you.
Thank you.